Good afternoon. Is this the first time you meet a hacker in real life? I imagine this is kind of what's going on in your mind when you hear about hackers. Every day we learn about cyber attacks, viruses. We hear that there are hackers in basements covered in hoodies, and they're out to get us. Not just us personally, but our companies, our elections, our governments, our planes, our cars. Yes, it's true, the digital age has made everything we rely on more vulnerable than ever before. Which is why today, I'm here to offer you a different perspective about what hackers can do for you. I should know, I've been in the hacker community for more than half my life. In fact, if I'm being honest, I started my path into the hackers world sometime in the 90s in my school, growing up in sunny Tel Aviv on the coast of the Mediterranean. And I was that nerd that even for the school photo came with the Walkman, had the short hair, and was standing to the side because she thought she was more clever and smarter than everybody else. I'm sure you know some people like that, even if you don't consider them to be a hacker. But my path into the hacker world really began when I met my mentor. And it might be easier for you to recognize her in the following photo. She's not only a visiting professor at the London School of Economics, she's also an award-winning actress. Her name, Angelina Jolie. In 1995, she portrayed a fierce young high school hacker, a young woman just like me, who was not afraid to use her powers over technology for good. In that film, she was the hero. Angelina and her hacker friends helped prevent an ecological catastrophe, uncovered corporate corruption, and showed the FBI who the real criminals in the story were. If you still haven't watched the movie, I won't spoil it for you, although it's been 20-something years. But to me, that film showed more than anything that a young woman can find her place in a global community of passionate individuals, high school weirdos just like me, who are driven by finding what else can we do with technology. That wasn't the intended idea from the people who created that technology in the first place. And that's what hackers do. So today I'm going to show you some of the faces of my hacker friends. Not Hollywood heroes, but real-life, everyday heroes. Heroes like Malcolm, a surfer from England, 23-year-old. A few months ago, he almost single-handedly stopped the spread of a global cyber attack. You may have heard about this virus, the infamous WannaCrypt, a ransomware that took over not just computers for the UK's National Health Services, where it disrupted operations for 30% of emergency rooms and hospitals, but also stopped operation in a Nissan Renault factory in France, disrupted regular technology operations for Telefonica, Spain's largest telco, one of the biggest telcos in Europe. It was this virus that kept spreading on, which put many businesses, including probably you and me and your organizations, putting all of us at risk. These ransomware viruses can do a lot of damage. They encrypt your files or your data, and they request a Bitcoin or a ransom payment in order to get access to your files. However, just a month after this WannaCry epidemic was stopped in its tracks, a new epidemic launched. You may have heard about this one. It started in a small Ukrainian tax accounting software company. You can see it's a very humble data center, which became a birthplace for a global virus that took over machines all over Europe and the US, including disrupting normal operations at the Rotterdam automated shipping container. This is one of the world's most innovative shipping container terminals in the world. And because of this attack, the company that operates it, Maersk, announced that not only have they experienced disruptions in further facilities around the world, they are going to report a probable $300 million in losses from the last quarter. attributed to this cyber attack and its disruption to normal operations. All because of a small Ukrainian company that could not secure its own data centers. In the case of this new virus, codenamed Petia, once again, an independent hacker called Amit was actually able to identify a potential kill switch or a vaccine to prevent further spread of this virus. And he did it overnight, just before our largest hacker convention in Israel, while he was waiting for his friend at the bar. He looked at the code and identified a potential flaw that would help prevent further infections to people that have not yet had to deal with this virus. And then he went on Twitter, hackers' favorite social media platform, to ask for help, to spread the news. Once they found a vaccine, hundreds of organizations were able to deploy this solution and prevent further disruption. Unfortunately, the vaccine was too late for a pharmaceutical company. Merck, pharmaceutical giant, had serious disruptions to their operations because of this virus. And in fact, they announced that several drugs and several factories might be behind on their delivery for this quarter. They are also expecting potential financial damages. But the risks to human lives are even greater. In fact, what's happening here with both of these major cyber attacks is that they are spreading far and wide. They're not just hitting financial sectors or shipping companies or stock exchanges. They're hitting everybody at the same time. And the reason that they are so far spread and so dangerous is actually two reasons. Number one, out-of-date, end-of-life operating systems, especially ones that we may rely on in industrial control systems environment, hospitals, and all of those organizations around the world that are still behind on their digital transformation. It is exactly these older operating systems which cause the most problems. The second reason is that these operating systems had flaws that were originally identified by none other than the United States National Security Agency years ago. So one of the world's largest security agencies identified a vulnerability in operating systems that we all rely on. Being a security agency, they used it as they know, for espionage. Unfortunately, they couldn't keep a lid on their own cyber weapons, and a group of other criminals or spies got into the agency and leaked these. These attacks were facilitated by a nation-state cyber weapon that was weaponized in the hands of criminals. To which purposes, we may never know. To me, it's become clear that in the world of cybersecurity, we are in fact already experiencing what you might consider a global age of cyber warfare, called cyber warfare, which began almost a decade ago. The trouble is, we are all on this battlefield. It's not just generals and politicians, but corporates, civilians, and especially those at risk, those organizations that cannot defend themselves. This is where I see hackers come into the picture. And if you ask me, the real bad guys, they're not just the security agencies or the spies or the criminals. These are what we should really focus on. As long as humans create technology, we will also create flaws, vulnerabilities, bugs, and not just in software, but also in hardware, in operating systems, in everything new and digital. There will probably be issues and risks, ones that we have not even imagined possible. This is exactly where I see hackers stepping into the picture, acting like a global immune system, collaborating with one another and with organizations from each and every sector of industry to identify security problems and, like an immune system, galvanize us, help us find vaccines, solutions, demand something better from our technology providers, demand accountability from the governments that use these vulnerabilities for nefarious purposes. The idea that hackers can be an immune system for the digital age is one I'm proud to have shared on the global TED platform a few years ago. Since then, I've heard from hackers from every continent imaginable, from Africa, from America, Latin America, North America, from Japan, from Korea, from Iran, from North Africa, from all corners of Europe. There is a global ecosystem of friendly hackers that want to help. But it also relies on us imagining them in a new light, allowing them to provide that assistance. I was deeply inspired by the words of the famous hacker from New Zealand, Barnaby Jack. Barnaby became infamous when he conducted a demonstration of a remote radio attack on an embedded insulin pump. Insulin pumps are already vastly improving the lives of diabetic patients around the world. But it was only thanks to his demonstration that the company who makes these technologies and the FDA in the United States became aware of critical cyber vulnerabilities in these products. His demonstration showed that he can remotely trigger the pump to release in a single instant all of the remaining insulin in the pump's reservoir, thereby causing a potential massive, if not lethal, spike in insulin levels. But he has never hurt a soul. In fact, he said that sometimes it is required of hackers to demonstrate the threat so that we may spark a solution, and that we have to be out there proving these things. Further building on his work is Norway's own researcher, a hacker, but a professor as well, Professor Mary Moe. She has a pacemaker in her body, and she is now a pioneer of the research of vulnerabilities in such connected medical technologies. So hackers are already exploring the boundaries of how new technologies may put us at risk. And they are creating a space where companies have to take notice of these threats, where it is no longer possible to hide these things under the rug. And I think hackers play a very important role in bringing forward that transparency. In fact, I'm a member of a grassroots hacker organization that Mary belongs to as well, called I Am the Cavalry. And our researchers and friendly hackers have already helped automotive companies, government institutions, and other critical areas and sectors to identify security flaws and find ways to work with friendly hackers together. Here's one company you may have heard of. They're called Tesla. Their flagship car, the Model S, is seen at a hacker convention where they actively invite hackers to collaborate with them. And they don't just invite them, they reward them with medals. The topmost security researchers that can identify issues in the product, that means hardware, software, onboard systems, or even Tesla's website and Twitter account, they receive valuable recognition as contributing to a safer environment. This is why I'm very excited about a phenomena which expanded in the past few years, a phenomena bringing together elements of crowdsourcing and gamification, which I'm sure you've heard about in the past few days. This time, it's being used to identify security vulnerabilities. Bug bounty programs are a way for major companies and smaller organizations to actively work with friendly hackers. Here's some data from the Google program. This is just from last year. Now, there is no arguing that Google can afford to hire the best security talent in the world. And yet, every year, they find incredible value by paying out and recognizing the work of independent researchers from all over the world who can still find critical problems in the Google code and the Google products, despite the best efforts done in the company. Academic researchers show that there is always value to be found in these programs, but there's a bigger story here. When I see this map, I see all of the people in Southeast Asia, in North Africa, in Latin America, in Central and Eastern Europe, that had never before had a legal alternative to participate in the global security ecosystem without being criminalized or marginalized. And there are dozens of thousands of such hunters, dedicated hackers that are helping the world become safer. Now, this is not just something that Google does. In fact, you can see an exponential trend in the adoption of these programs by major companies, some of them maybe even present here today, like MasterCard, or United Airlines, or Uber. Of course, it might not be surprising that innovative companies that were founded by hackers, like Facebook, will have a program to collaborate with hackers. What about a completely different organization? What about the Pentagon? Last year, the United States Defense Department launched its first of a kind government program to actively invite hackers to find vulnerabilities. The time it took to identify the first valid report of a vulnerability from the moment they opened the program, 13 minutes. What's even funnier is the rumor I heard it was a 13-year-old kid. Now imagine how many years, months, weeks, in the good case, these vulnerabilities on the world's most important military organization were accessible. Criminals, terrorists, and spies don't require an invitation to collaborate, and they won't tell you about what they've discovered. I give lots of credit to this lady, Katie Moussouris, who pioneered bug bounty programs at Microsoft, created a global international standard on responsible disclosure of vulnerabilities, and introduced this concept to the Pentagon and other US agencies. Now the US Army, the US Air Force have their own programs as well. So while it's true, hackers can seem scary, our hair is a little bit funny, we talk in different slangs and terms, we might be the weirdos, the outcasts, the ones who think they are smarter than everybody. But these are exactly the people that you have to open your mind and collaborate with. And let me leave you with a final question. Can you afford not to? I encourage you to go beyond your scope of thinking about hackers and consider how hackers can help you. In fact, here's one final good reason to do so. Last summer, at the Global Hacker Convention, I also saw many kids who were brought there by their parents. Kids from all walks of life, ethnicities, backgrounds. And their parents think that becoming a hacker is a really good strategy for the future, because that's not a job that's going to go away anytime soon. That should be another good reason for you to think outside your boundaries. So it is in your hands to go that final mile, break the firewall, go beyond. The question is, are you up to do it? Choice is yours. Thank you.